A while back, someone asked me a question: chaos engineering versus SRE. Which one should I do and why? There are people with the titles Site Reliability Engineer, or SRE. There are people with the title Chaos Engineer. There's also people with the job title of DevOps Engineer and Resilience Engineer. And we hear a lot of these titles in the tech space that we work in. So which is best for your company? Well, let's put them all into a cage together and let them fight it out. May the strongest engineer win.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So one of the biggest problems in tech is that we're really bad at naming things. So before we get started with that cage match, let's take a step back and take a moment to define what these things mean. The word DevOps traces back to 2008 when Patrick Dubois, a Belgian engineer, was trying to break down the organizational silos that separated developers and operations engineers. This created friction in the software lifecycle. And although he never wrote a canonical definition for his word, others have. Emily Freeman, author of the book DevOps for Dummies, defines DevOps this way.
I define DevOps as an engineering culture of collaboration, ownership, and learning, with the purpose of accelerating the software development lifecycle from ideation to production.
So then, what is a DevOps engineer? This is tricky. If DevOps is a culture of collaboration, ownership, and learning, then do DevOps engineers engineer culture? Some would argue that there really is no such thing as a DevOps engineer. But in practice, this role is usually just an ops engineer, someone focused on building and maintaining infrastructure, and the automation and tooling necessary for developers to quickly deploy code to that infrastructure. The folks at Google recognize this notion that there really is no such thing as a DevOps engineer. And they created an engineering role that uses DevOps principles as a guide. In the SRE workbook, members of the Google SRE team wrote, "If you think of DevOps as a philosophy and an approach to working, you can argue that SRE implements some of the philosophy that DevOps describes, and is closer to a concrete definition of a job or role than, say, DevOps engineer." So in a way, class SRE implements interface DevOps. And Liz Fong-Jones and Seth Vargo have a fantastic video about this that I'll link to below. So an SRE is, in some sense of the word, a DevOps engineer. What's a resilience engineer? Resilience engineering is actually an academic field of study that focuses on theories and practices to enable complex socio-technical systems of people and technology, and organizations to continue to operate or deliver essential services when dealing with expected and unexpected situations. The thing is, most people and what most companies are doing is probably not resilience engineering, at least not in the formal sense. What I'd call resilience with capital R. I've added a link in the description below so you can read more about the actual field of resilience engineering. It's extremely fascinating and it's well worth your time to read up on. But when it comes to engineers who practice resilience with a small r, here's what J. Paul Reed, an applied resilience engineer at Netflix, has to say.
Resilience engineering is a field of study, and that's what my master's in human factors and systems safety looks a lot at resilience engineering as a practice. But it is kind of a falsehood to say I am a resilience engineer, like I engineer resilience into systems. Because resilience, as its practice, it's a thing that you do, right? So when you look at trying to increase the resilience in a socio-technical system, that's really a journey that you go on with the organization and you go on with the various teams that you're involved with. Like in some sense, when you're doing this work on an ops team or a DevOps team or, whatever type of team you work on, we're all actually sort of resilience engineers if we're practicing this together.
So we're all sort of resilience engineers with a small r, in the sense that we're all practicing resilience. This means that an SRE is a DevOps engineer and also a resilience engineer, again with that small r. We're down to one more engineer, the chaos engineer. In my last video, I talked about how chaos engineering was about learning by using experimentation and failure. And remember that DevOps is a culture of collaboration, ownership, and learning. Just like SRE practices are implementations of DevOps principles, so is chaos engineering. And using chaos engineering to better understand how your system operates while experiencing failure is one way to build resilience. And also, just like resilience is something that all engineers should practice, chaos engineering can be practiced by everyone. When I help companies run chaos experiments to learn about their systems, I find that the companies that learn the most and see the most benefits are the ones that involve as many engineers and software developers as possible. So back to that original question. Should you do chaos engineering or SRE? The answer is both. DevOps, SRE, resilience, and chaos engineering aren't mutually exclusive. Ultimately, I think SRE is the engineering role that you want to hire or train for. And the engineers in that role should be able to follow DevOps principles, and they should be practicing resilience and chaos engineering. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button. If you've got a question or have a topic that you'd like to see me cover, leave a comment and click the subscribe button to be notified when I post new videos. And I'll see you in the next video.